Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my Week 3 Top 25 review. This one was actually quite an interesting week of football. A lot more fun than I expected it to be. A lot of lame matchups in hindsight that actually ended up being pretty good matchups. But let's see how I did this week. Like and subscribe, help a comment, always helps. Let's get straight into this. So starting off the week, one of the only top 25 matchups, and probably the most anticipated one, ended up being a stink ball. I said that Kansas State would win this one, but it would be a bit closer, and because I didn't know if Kansas State was going to have a turnover problem. And honestly, I thought if anything, U of A had an offense and not a defense. U of A should not be in the top 25. All they have is that receiver. Even their quarterback wasn't playing that good. I mean, he threw a pretty bad interception against Kansas State. Kansas State player made a great play on the ball, but he's just trying to force feed their top receiver, T-Mac. They're trying to force feed him the ball, and now it just looks like there's only one good receiver on U of A, and the quarterback didn't really perform that well. Kansas State ripped U of A up, and U of A is going to be out of the top 25. I can see them. This doesn't count as a conference game. Lucky for them, but I can see this. I can see this game, this outcome, showing a lot of what's going to happen to U of A in the Big 12. TCU and UCF, they've got both of those teams on the road, and those teams are very even after the result of tonight. Yeah, I'm doing this the night of. So the result of tonight, UCF beat TCU by 1 point in a pretty big comeback. Very, very matched up teams. Very, very even. And U of A's got both those teams on the road. They also have Utah on the road. I don't think U of A's in Big 12 contention. They're not going to be as good as they were last year. UNLV at Kansas. I expected this to happen. I said they'd win 27-20. They won 23-20. UNLV is a really good team. They're a really good football team. They hit the road and beat Houston. They've now hit the road and beat Kansas. And Kansas drops to 1-2, which really sucks because I had the most faith in this team as a Big 12 contender. But it turns out their quarterback is just nowhere near the same level of talent he was 2 years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. The injuries must have got to him or something. Dude cannot stop throwing interceptions. It's just endless. Illinois is not a good football team. And the only reason UNLV didn't put up more points is probably because it was a road game and because Kansas, if anything, has a defense right now. But, seriously, you can't be losing a game like this. You especially can't be losing a game like at Illinois. That's a bad loss. But Kansas loses yet again. They drop down to third in the conference. And UNLV right now controls their destiny to a not a Big 12, sorry, a college football playoff spot. Because they have to host Syracuse later in the year, which actually looks like it could be difficult. On the road at Oregon State, host Boise State. They've got games they've got to get through. But I guarantee you, if they only lose one of those and by slim margin, this team is the runner for the college football playoff spot for the group of 5 teams. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having 2 group of 5 teams in. That can definitely happen, but one of them would have to go undefeated. The other one would have to get the bid or something. I could see Liberty going undefeated and maybe UNLV being a 1-loss team and both still getting in just because Liberty would be undefeated and UNLV would be 1 loss. But Liberty doesn't play anybody, so they would just be frauds going into that game. UNLV, they actually have a fairly tough schedule, and they're prevailing. They're 3-0. This is a big win for UNLV. Bama at Wisconsin. I said it would be a well-fought match with Alabama pretty much owning it, but, Wisconsin making it semi-difficult. But the problem with this game was Tyler Van Dyke, the quarterback for Wisconsin, went out really fast. So the final score of this one was 42-10. Alabama dominated Wisconsin on the road. That's going to happen when other team's starting quarterback got hurt. And there was a time period when Jalen Milroe got hurt and was totally limping off the field. At least I think it was. I think I saw number 4. He was like totally limping off the field and stuff like that. And then he came back out and just was playing perfectly fine. Like, he was acting like he couldn't even put pressure on his ankle. He was hopping on one foot. Then he came back out and played. I was seriously like, what the fuck, dude? Like, are you serious? You just put on that whole soap show, and now you're back out there playing like nothing even happened. Like, excuse me? What are you trying to do right now? That ticked me off. That was just a little detail I noticed. That pissed me off. I don't know if it was Jalen Milroe, if I was seeing things. Maybe it was somebody else, because I was like briefly looking at it. But when I saw that I thought it was Milroe. I was like, damn, that's Milroe going out. But then when I saw him back out on the field, I was like, what? So if I'm wrong, correct me if I'm wrong, please. But that pissed me off. Oklahoma State at Tulsa. I said that this one would also be a little close, just because I was a little curious on Oklahoma State and how they were going to perform on the road after how they performed against Arkansas last week. You know, they haven't stepped outside of their home stadium, and Tulsa has a pretty decent offense. But Oklahoma State absolutely handled business. I mean, Tulsa had 350 yards of offense. They failed 2 of their 3 fourth down conversions and had 1 interception, so 3 turnovers. Yet they were held to 10 points. So, I mean, Oklahoma State did a good job in this game, really putting things away. They have completely lost interest in trying to get Ollie Gordon his Heisman, and now they are focusing on getting Alan Bowman his Heisman, because dude went 24 for 31, 396 yards, and 5 touchdowns, but 1 interception. Ollie Gordon wasn't even the leading rusher. Like, that's crazy. He wasn't even the leading rusher. I feel like they have completely lost interest in trying to make. Oh, sorry. Final score was 45-10. But they've probably lost entire interest in their Heisman candidate, Ollie Gordon. He's not playing like how he was last year. Either that's the O-line or it was just a fluke. It's probably the O-line, though, just being worse, and now the running back is having a much harder time with as much pressure. But Alan Bowman is definitely he's definitely stepping into a massive, massive role for Oklahoma State. And he's going to make the game against Utah very interesting because, he's going to make it very interesting. Both teams 3-0. It is, I don't know if there's a bye week. No, it is next week. That's a W match. He's going to make that match very interesting, but I hope Cam Rising is healthy by then. LSU at South Carolina. You can probably name this one the game of the week, because this seriously was the game of the week. This was fabulous. I thankfully took LSU and didn't pick the upset. Otherwise, I'd be a little sad and disappointed. But, man, I mean, if you looked at my shorts, you saw I posted the missed field goal. That hurt me. Even though I wanted South Carolina to lose, sort of, because my prediction, and I wanted my record to be good this year, that really hurt to see, because I was enjoying the game. I was enjoying the momentum, and I felt really, really bad for the fans. Like, after all that ruckus they went through that game, all the ups and downs, just to lose it to a missed field goal, as well as I think that was their backup quarterback who stepped in for South Carolina and was playing like that. I think it was their backup quarterback and was like actually making stuff happen. But, ultimately final score was 36-33. That was probably South Carolina's best shot at an upset this year, because, that was the easiest team by far that they have at home. They play Akron next week. Then they get a bye before they host Ole Miss, which, I mean, could be interesting, but Ole Miss is eons better than LSU. At Alabama, at Oklahoma, they get to host A&M, and then they're at Vanderbilt, but those aren't ranked teams. They get to host Missouri. That one could be interesting. Host Wofford, and then they're on the road against Clemson. So that was probably their best shot. Like, looking at it from bird's eye, that was probably their best shot at the upset, and they missed it by field goal. Now, they could have lost in overtime, but missing the field goal definitely hurt a lot. Tough game for South Carolina. Boston College at Missouri. I was wrong about Boston College. I thought they were frauds with just being kind of in the rankings because they beat a Florida State team that was in the top 10, and they got all boosted up and stuff. But to be honest, even though we'll get to it, I have different opinions. They played very well in this game. Missouri did take the victory, but ultimately, they start off the starting drive with the touchdown. Every team starts off like this. If it's not the first drive, it's like the second or third. Every team starts off the game with a touchdown, but that doesn't mean shit. Like, seriously, I feel like that first touchdown does not determine a damn thing. Because, like, in a 66-7 blowout, it'll be like the team that got blown out would strike first with that touchdown right away. So the first touchdown, okay, whatever, Missouri kicks a field goal. But it actually took a while for any teams to score points again. And then it was Boston College that scored another touchdown to go up 14-3. But also on my shorts page, that was one of the most absurd touchdowns I've ever seen. It was it was like a fumbled snap, and Missouri completely just lost trance. They lost focus, and the safeties and the corners started to push up for some reason. Because I'm sorry, if you drop the snap as the safety, you're not getting anywhere near that ball. You're completely out of the play, dude, if it is a fumbled snap. But they all push up because they want to see what's going on and stuff, and they want to celebrate. But what happens? The quarterback for Boston College, Thomas Castellanos, I think is how you say it. Castellanos, we'll say that. He picks it up and just slings it deep. And there is a guy wide open because everybody pushed up and was watching the ball on the ground. And he just broke down the sidelines and scored a touchdown. And it's just as the defense, you can't let that happen. You got to let the people who are close go for the ball. Everybody else stay in defense because that exact scenario where the quarterback picks the ball up and makes something happen can happen. You need to be ready for it. And honestly, if they were on top of that and he tried to throw that ball, they could have gotten a pick out of him, dude. But he was so wide open, quarterback just slung it deep, and he was wide open. So then from that point on, though, Missouri made really no mistakes, going on a 24-point run to get up 27-14. And then Boston College put on, I wouldn't necessarily say some fart time touchdown, but with 3 minutes and 45 seconds left, they score a touchdown and make it a 6-point game. And then Missouri just ends the game. So it was a good game. It was mainly a defensive game for sure for Boston College. But Boston College definitely made it close. I don't know if they will drop out of the top 25. I'm not sure if they should drop out of the top 25. But definitely was a much more fun game to watch than I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be an absolute clobber fest. But Boston College fought well. Oregon at Oregon State. I understand why some people were picking Oregon State in this. But the problem with everybody picking Oregon State in this is you're just fueling the fire. Everybody's going to hop on to picking Oregon to get upset because of how bad they performed in their first 2 games, barely beating Idaho and Boise State. Now they hit the road to play their rivals. That's the hardest team that's the hardest team of those 3. Surely Oregon will get upset. I said it'd be lower scoring with Oregon State maybe putting up some points. But ultimately, Oregon's got that talent. Oregon State's lost so much. No, Oregon has finally stepped into their element, and they shut this team down. Dylan Gabriel was 20 for 24, 291 yards, and 2 touchdowns. His completion rating is phenomenal right now. He has only missed. It looks like he's only had 11 incompletions on the season so far. I don't know if that's counting this week's passes, though, because he had 24 in this game. Let's see the Boise State one. He had 21 in the Boise State one, so 45. And then in this one, he had 49. So, yeah, it's not counting one of the weeks. But he is literally – he's got one of the best he's pulling a Bo Nix, really. He has one of the best pass to completion rating, ratio. He is literally he throws the ball, it's getting caught. If it's getting dropped, it's rare. Take a picture. Post it up on the wall because that doesn't happen often. Oregon State, they put up a good fight at the start, Scoring that touchdown right before halftime definitely made it interesting. But once the game got like to 32-14 and they didn't score, it just got out of hand. It got out of control. I will say Oregon State did impress me. They actually were still a pretty good team. Their quarterback, Giovanni McCoy, he's actually a pretty interesting dual threat. And he could be pretty good for Oregon State, but ultimately Oregon absolutely handled business. And maybe we're finally seeing the Oregon team that was ranked number 3 at the start of the year. Tulane at Oklahoma. I was disappointed by this one because I had a lot of faith in picking Tulane in this one. I picked Tulane to hit the road and to make a big upset happen, but ultimately Oklahoma's defense just prevailed. The pick six that even got the game close, sorry for that long pause. The pick six that the Oklahoma quarterback even threw for it to get to 19 for Tulane, final score is 19-34. It was such a bad pick six by their quarterback. His only interception of the game, but man, it was awful. Like, it was actually a terrible pick six. And I really thought Tulane might actually, win that game. But ultimately, a 24-yard run by Jackson Arnold to put him up 31. And then they kicked a field goal to make it 34-19, the final score. Tulane just couldn't really get anything going offensively. They missed a field goal earlier in the game. They had an interception late in the game. They failed a 4th down conversion late in the game. And then they had a fumble late in the game. They turned the ball over at the worst times. That technically, the missed field goal counts as a turnover on downs. Tulane they couldn't perform. They weren't performing at the level they needed to, and I thought they were really going to step up this game, but they just turned the ball over too much. And Oklahoma's going to sneak by another victory, and they're going to remain in the top 25 for like 2 more games because they get to host Tennessee. And sorry, Tennessee is a much better looking team than Oklahoma right now. If Oklahoma wins that game, I'd be really surprised. But Tennessee looks like a much better team than Oklahoma right now. That is a cool matchup, though. Notre Dame at Purdue. Oh, boy, this is my biggest defeat. So last week, I had a perfect prediction. This week, I had a hideous prediction. I said Purdue would win this one. Because ultimately, I thought Purdue's offense looked pretty good in their first game. They were on a bye week before going into this game. Notre Dame just lost to NIU. It was easy to pick the upset here. God, was I wrong. But the reason why I was so wrong was not because, they were just slinging the ball and destroying them. Purdue just couldn't stop the run game. When 362 yards of rushing, it's your quarterback, it's your running back. They literally could not stop the run. Riley Leonard ran 11 carries for 100 yards and 3 touchdowns. Jeremiah Love, 10 carries, 109 yards, 1 touchdown. Jadarian Price, 8 carries, 86 yards, 1 touchdown. Even one of their further back running backs had a touchdown on the floor. And their backup, Steve Angeli, I don't know what that is, threw 2 touchdowns over the air. He went 6 for 9. Notre Dame passing-wise wasn't that good. Then when their backup stepped in, he was pretty good, but Riley Leonard passing wasn't that good. And ultimately, the 216 yards of passing that game were, not that impressive. It was just they were running it down Purdue's starts, and they couldn't stop it. And then Purdue against the Notre Dame defense, which we know is good, couldn't get it going. And I was probably pretty stupid for that upset, but I'm not quitting on Purdue this year. If there's another opportunity I feel like Purdue can win, I'm going to pick it. But I'm not quitting on Purdue right now. I still have faith. Utah at Utah State. Once I realized Bryson Barnes was the quarterback of this team, I lost all faith. Not going to lie, it was close for a bit. Had me on my heels when it was 28-21. Even when it was 14-3, I was kind of sweating in my boots. But the backup to Cam Rising, Isaac Wilson, literally Zach Wilson duplicate. Is it his brother? Because he looks just like him. It's actually crazy. Isaac Wilson, freshman, stepped into the game, and he actually performed really well. He went 20 for 33, 239 yards, 3 touchdowns, but an interception. He didn't really run the ball that well, but Um, he definitely passed the ball. He definitely passed the ball well. Utah's defense didn't really step up, but they definitely stood tall when they needed to later in the game. Utah had 460 yards of total offense. Really, what beat Utah State up was obviously turnovers, but really the penalties. Utah had one penalty for 15 yards, I'm assuming like a pass interference. Utah State had 9 penalties for 65 yards. That the ratio there, Utah was winning huge in that game. That's definitely going to play a massive part. Utah remains undefeated. No upset there. Georgia at Kentucky. Wow. I didn't really get to watch this one because I was out. I was out and about. I was not able to watch this one. I didn't have any faith in Kentucky to win this game. After how poorly they performed against South Carolina, I was like, no way. I mean, I should have anticipated a little bit closer because sorry for the mic noise. It was a night game in at Kentucky, and even though it's Georgia, it's still a night game in a road game. It's kind of tough environment, but I was not expecting this. I mean, Kentucky almost did it, dude. The 4 field goals holding the Georgia offense to just 13 points. They could have won this game. Of course, it's Georgia's defense, and they've been doing this seemingly every single year where they have this one stinker game, but they still end up winning out pretty much the rest of the year. But, man, this one was close. Like, this one was the closest of them all. Winning by a point on the road as the number 1 team is crazy, and I can pretty much tell you this. Even though I probably wouldn't change it, I bet you Texas is going to rank. They're going to get ranked at number 1 instead of Georgia just because of the poor score versus, Texas. Quinn Ewers going out with like a strained something and Arch Manning absolutely stepping up to the plate. I bet you Texas is going to get ranked at number 1. Maryland at Virginia. I predicted this one. I said people should keep an eye out for Virginia, and they just weren't able to do it. Whoever that guy was that said, Michigan State is a much better team than Virginia, you're right. Congratulations. Virginia did not win this one. I was pretty damn close on Maryland's score, but in terms of Virginia's score, I was pretty wrong. I do really like the quarterback for Virginia. He had 2 interceptions in this game, though, which was pretty bad, and no touchdowns. But, dude, he is such a fun quarterback to watch. He's got a lot of potential, dude. I want to see him succeed, but they take an L to Maryland. Not an ideal L. They lose 27-13, and that's the last game I included on this list. But I guess if I can look at other notable games, definitely that UCF TCU game, 35-34 road win for UCF. Very impressive comeback, being down 28-7. Pulled it all the way back. KJ Jefferson awakens after being relatively bad. He is alive and well. Mississippi State getting absolutely pounded by Toledo in their home stadium, losing 41-17 is insane. That's crazy. They made Toledo look good. But ultimately, dude, the MAC is a ridiculous conference right now. They've got NIU, who just upset Notre Dame, Toledo, who just made Mississippi State look like a Group of 5 team. Bowling Green barely lost by 7 points at Penn State. These teams are actually competitive in this conference. It is a solid conference, dude. I'm not going to lie. There's a lot of good teams in that MAC conference. They're starting to make a name for themselves. Any other games that I'm missing? Vanderbilt, as they start getting all this hype, they lose at Georgia State. Bad loss there. Looking for other games. UAB barely. U of A should have beat Arkansas, but Arkansas managed to come back there. Pitt with a massive win over West Virginia. That really should not have been a win at all for Pitt, but West Virginia found a way to lose this game, and they're just not even close to as good as I thought they were going to be. They're throwing. Washington State hitting the road and beating Washington. My Washington fan, bro, I'm sorry. That's gotta suck. That's gotta suck, man, because Washington should have won this game, really. It should have been Washington's ball game. But it looks like Washington State was actually they're just a pretty good team, it seems. They're now 3-0. And Texas A&M made a fool of Florida. Florida football is officially over. They have to cancel their program forever. Memphis hit the road and beat Florida State. Michigan really struggled with their opponent. And 2 minutes left, Cal is finally starting to run away with the game against San Diego State. So that is the Week 3 recap. I hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe and help a comment always helps, and that's all from me. Adios.